Good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO, Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and we are so happy you could join us today for coffee and conversation. Today, we're going to be hearing from Lamonda Dye from LCD Agency Services, and she's going to be talking about if you have a medical emergency in your place, what do you do? So we're hearing it from the expert. We will hear from Lamonda in just a little bit. But first of all, we're going to do self-introductions. And before we go there, I will just tell you the protocol. We are on a Zoom meeting. So if you have questions, I'm sure Lamonda won't mind if you interrupt her and ask those questions. If you are on Facebook Live, you can type your question in and Tiffany or Laura will get it answered by the speaker. So you know who I am, you know what the protocol is. And now we're going to turn it over to self-introductions.
All right, we're going to do self-introductions, and Sandy, we'll start with you.
All right, Sandy Kusnoff, Frank's Glass.
And Billy.
I'm Billy Bruns. I'm with Family Promise of Butler County.
Great. Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Pierce. I'm with Modern Psychiatry and Wellness.
Great. Laura.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
And I'm Tiffany Grubb, Director of Marketing here at the Greater Hamilton Chamber, and I'll turn it back over to Dan.
Okay, we are ready to get started. So Lamonda, you ready to go?
I am. Let me see here, share my screen. Ready. Let's see here. Get this started here. There we go. I think I'm beginning. There we go. All right, everybody, seeing that okay? Yes, just nod.
There it goes.
It finally popped up.
Oh, it finally popped up. Okay, good. Oh yeah, it gave me a little clue here up at the top. I like that. All right, so I'm Lamonda Dye. I am with LCD Agency Services. We are an organization that supports other home care agencies and consumers, primarily in the home care sector. My short presentation today is centered around first aid and CPR and a little bit about AED. I know I'm throwing a lot of, letters out here, but we will all go over them together. So going on here. All right, would you know what to do if a coworker loses consciousness, or a member of a community is choking, or if someone is showing signs of a stroke, or a loved one becomes severely burned? Don't everybody answer at once. Would you know what to do?
Probably not.
Right? Probably not. So, purpose of the presentation, you would not be the only one who has said no to at least 3 out of these 4 questions. So we'll go over the importance. Some important facts about CPR. Before we do that, I want to tell you what CPR AED stands for and what first aid actually, what it really is. I need to move this out of the way here. It's right in the middle of my page and driving me nuts. Okay. The C and the P stands for cardiopulmonary, and the R stands for resuscitation. AED is, the A stands for artificial, the E is external, and the D is defibrillator. And first aid is simply providing temporary aid to someone who has an injury. Examples are a burn, a cut or abrasion, dislocated bone, or a broken bone. Now let's get on to the facts here. I got these facts from the American Heart Association and the American Red Cross. 1.5 million people have heart attacks annually. Over 400,000 of them die before they get to the hospital, unfortunately. Globally, heart attacks claim more lives than HIV, car accidents, flu, and pneumonia combined. That really blew me away. I have to say, even though I'm an instructor, I had no clue that it claimed so many people in that way. Over 85% of cardiac and breathing emergencies occur at home or in community settings or in the workplace. 1 of 6 men and 1 of 8 women aged 45 and over have had a heart attack or a stroke. Approximately 45% of all heart attacks occur in people under the age of 65, which is a little scary because I think that includes all of us here, right? Bystander CPR improves the survival rate because when these things happen, you're most of the time in a community setting, help is needed immediately. So if there's someone around that knows CPR, you could literally be saving someone's life. So let's talk a little bit about workplace safety. Does your organization does your organization's safety plan include first aid CPR by any chance? Anybody? No? What is included in your safety plan? I'm curious to know. Anybody?
I don't know
I
that
don't
we
think
have
we
a
have
formal
one.
safety plan.
We have a first aid kit. That's about it.
Okay.
Same
Well,
with
there's a
us.
start.
And 911. So,
Yes. All right. Sandy, I thought I heard
We-
you saying something.
We're the same as them. We have a first aid kit, nothing beyond that.
Understood.
We
other-
have a first aid kit, and then we also have like a readiness kit where it has radio and flashlight, stuff that you need that you don't need to use for electricity. So, and that's at each location.
Understood. And those are some of the basic things, I myself, we have those things at our different locations as well. Sometimes other organizations, they may have a plan in place for if there's a fire, if there's a tornado. I know I had been speaking with Ben at First Financial, and he said that they have an active shooter plan, which unfortunately in certain situations we have to think about. But those were some of the things that were included in other organizations' safety plan, but no one says first aid and CPR. Did you know that more than 10,000 of cardiac arrests happen in the workplace annually? That kind of blew me away too, because that's kind of huge. And only 50% of the people can locate that AED, which really could save someone's life if you just knew where it was, and it always walks you through how to use it. Knowing CPR has the potential to save thousands of lives. What can we do to improve these outcomes? So we can offer or advocate first aid and CPR training in the workplace. We can include this training as a part of your organization's annual training, because I know it's a lot to do, onboarding, when you're hiring somebody. So bringing it in as an annual training would probably be the best. Designate someone on each shift or by department to be CPR and first aid certified, because in some organizations, it's not feasible for everybody, for like in a factory situation, to be first aid and CPR trained. And then collaborate with or partner with other organizations like myself to actually come in and do the training. And that is the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions for me? I'm gonna unshare here or stop sharing.
Lamonda, would you give everyone your information in case they'd like to contact you if they
Oh,
have any
sorry,
questions?
I took it down too fast. Yes, so I can be reached at my name is Lamonda at lcdhha.com. Our phone number is 513-887-6100.
I do have a question for you. With CPR, how long ago was it that they determined you don't do the mouth part, you only do the chest?
I don't remember exactly, but I know that it was a little over 5 years ago, but I've been an instructor for about 15 years now. And I remember when I was learning, I always thought to myself how I don't want to say ridiculous, but how weird it is, if the person's heart is stopped, why do we care, about the breathing, you got to get the heart going, right? So I thought that a long time ago. So when they switched that and finally realized that, we need that heart going in order for anything to work, was it's a good thing. So, and I know that removes some of the barriers for some people that, especially when they're in the community, may not want to, give mouth to mouth for, tons of reasons, right? So just knowing you can do chest compressions and that could still save someone's life, I think that is really huge.
I agree. I don't think a lot of people know that that's changed.
Mhm.
My son had learned CPR in high school, which was awesome because he had to use it a few years ago, but he was doing the mouth part too. And I said, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yep. You do not.
So Lamonda, other than getting trained and all that type of thing, what's the most common workplace accidents or whatever, and what should we do other than, I would say, first of all, remain calm?
Okay, so I have three. So unfortunately, it's usually the cardiac arrest, and then it's stroke, and then it usually someone is cut or has a very deep abrasion or something like that you in a workplace. So cardiac arrest, of course, know that CPR, and know where your company's AED is if they have one. But if not, no big deal. Do those chest compressions until EMS arrives. And when you're taught first aid and CPR, you usually learn the signs of a stroke. And when you know those and you can see it in a coworker, of course, dial 911 right away. And I'll give you a couple of them. It's usually slurred speech and then a facial drooping. Those are usually the first things you're going to see. And then as far as a cut or a deep abrasion, of course, you'd use that first aid kit that you have, right? And clean it with the whatever solution is in your first aid kit because there's a wide variety. And I would loosely wrap it until that person is able to, get to the hospital or doctor or some, or wherever they choose urgent care. There's a ton of places to go where you could go now.
Is there anything that you can do for a stroke while you're waiting for help to arrive?
Besides monitoring the signs and symptoms, no, because if a stroke's going to happen, it's going to happen. But you monitoring that person and being able to tell EMS what has progressed, before they get there is very helpful because that'll let them know what stage of the stroke the individual is in. So for example, if you only, notice the slurring of the speech, tell them that, or if it was slurring of the speech and the loss of, that person couldn't move their left arm, you'd want to tell them that because again, that lets them know where the person is in the stroke and what area of the brain is being affected as well.
and isn't it true that if you catch it's a stroke early on, that you have a lot better chance of fully recovering versus waiting?
Absolutely. And that's why, again, it's very important for workplace to include this in workplace safety, because it literally could, extend, the life of that person. If you're a coworker and you see those things happening, the quicker you respond, the better the survival rate for that person and less damage, to the brain.
How much are AEDs now?
That is a good question, Dan. I am not sure, because we're instructors here. They kind of, grant us certain things. I am not sure, but I could find out for you. I'm gonna write that down.
I mean, saving a life, there's no price you can put on that, but at the same time, you
Absolutely.
think about, a small office like ours where we do have public going in and out, it probably would not be a bad idea, but I have no idea what something like that even costs.
Yeah, I can find out for you and let you know. And an AED is one of those things. It's not like you're buying it every year, right? And
Right.
you hope, that you don't need it. I think, the most you would have to replace are the stickers that you have to put on the person, but that's only if you have to use it. And I'm sure those aren't that expensive, but I will find out for you and let
I
you know.
appreciate it.
Mhm.
You do AED training. I'm a member of a club that has tennis and pickleball and platform, and we got one a couple years ago, but I'd be a little afraid to use it because
Mhm.
I have no idea how.
Yeah, kind of like what I mentioned in my presentation. There are large organizations that have AEDs, and either, half the staff don't know where it is, or they do know where it is and they don't know how to use it. And yes, we do AED training as well.
So I have another
We
question.
don't, I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we don't include it in our bystander training, but if the organization has one, we will train on that.
So my other question is, if someone has an unusual condition, and can the AED actually do more damage? And I'll tell you specifically, if somebody gives me an EKG, for instance, they will say that I'm having a heart attack because my heart is not placed like most people's. It's lying on its side. So what if somebody used an AED on me, they would have probably the stickers in all the wrong places. Or does it not work like that?
So the AED is in place to jumpstart your heart. It isn't, it doesn't do, it doesn't operate the same way like an EKG would, or like that. It's literally to jumpstart it and get it back pumping. So to answer your question, there hasn't been any, data that supports that it would, do any damage. But yeah, that's my best answer, Dan. I haven't known that to be an issue, because it's literally in place to,
Okay.
jolt it back, get
So
it back beating. Yeah,
it's not so specific that it depends on where your ventricles are.
correct,
Okay,
correct.
okay.
And how about in correlation to his question, if they have a pacemaker or a defibrillator, will that have any impact?
Yes, but usually those individuals will have, a well, hopefully I've seen some a bracelet or something that says that they have a pacemaker, or they'll have a necklace or something that'll, that will say some type of medical alert thing that, would let us know. Well, hopefully, because
Yeah, my
that's the only way.
husband carries his in his wallet, but in an emergency situation, I don't see somebody looking in his wallet
Correct.
for a medical thing. So I see what would happen if they did the AED on him.
You said what would happen?
Yeah.
Um, so it probably, I mean, it wouldn't, I don't want to use this word. You just, do, a lot of damage. It wouldn't be as effective.
Gotcha. I know that's what it's meant to do anyways, is to jolt the heart back into,
Mhm.
so.
So I have a simple question too, because
Mhm.
ours is probably pretty lame, so I'll put myself out there and ask it. What should be in a first aid kit?
Oh, yeah. So I love triple antibiotic ointment. I feel like it heals everything. So some form of triple antibiotic ointment, Band-Aids, some Curl-X, which is, that loose little mesh wrap that's usually in there. It comes in a little, little ball.
Mhm.
That is good. Between 2 and 4 4x4 pads, just in case you have an open wound, you can sit that on top and it doesn't usually stick to the wound, or if it's a burn. What else should you have in there?
How about peroxide?
Some cleaning. Yes, everybody loves peroxide, but I suggest some type of wound cleaning, because peroxide is very harsh. Does it clean? Yes, but it usually hurts a lot. There are tons of other wound cleaning washes out there that do the same thing without darn near killing you trying to clean the no alcohol. I had somebody say to me, like, just pour alcohol and please don't pour that on an open wound. If you want to clean around it with some alcohol, if there was dried blood or something, yeah, do that. But you don't I would get alcohol swabs, not so much the big bottle of it. And let's see here. I feel like I'm forgetting something. The ointment, the Curl-X, the 4x4s, wound or wash wound cleaner, alcohol swabs. Oh, those swabs with the cotton tip on the end, or you can just use some Q-tips to use with your ointment, because you don't want to put the ointment on the actual wound or cut or whatever it is that you're trying to take care of. And that's about it. I know some of them have, many things, ice packs, in there, for swelling. Some of them have Tylenol in them, ibuprofen, but simplistically, those are the items that would be ideal.
I think we need to update ours, Laura. We'll work on that.
I'll check it out when I come and train you guys.
I'm gonna replace it before you get here. So
Oh.
I fear that we've used things over time and probably never replaced them. So
Yeah, you're not alone. Yes. And some of them come with so many Band-Aids. I mean, I never seen so many varieties of Band-Aid sizes, but it's really not necessary.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, to buy the individual items would be just as good, because when you buy the first aid kit, you're kind of at their mercy of what they thought was important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Okay, another
I would
question.
say buying individually is a good way, because when you buy those first aid kits, sometimes the quality of what's in there
True. I will
is
agree
terrible.
with you. True. Mhm.
I know I had bought one, and the plastic Band-Aids were so thin and had
Yes.
no adhesion. They did not work, that I had to go buy the the Band-Aid brand or a Curad or something
Yeah.
that was gonna actually stick.
True. Mm-hmm. I usually
At the
instruct my
beginning of your
staff to use the 4x4 or smaller 2x2 and wrap it versus the Band-Aids, because they usually never stay. Yeah, especially if you're putting ointment on there, heaven forbid some of it slides off, and then there will be no adhesion then.
the beginning of your presentation, you had listed 4 things. Would you know what to do if, and one of them was a burn, I think one was a cardiac event. What would you do in each of those cases? I mean, you did the cardiac. What would you do for a burn?
So you would rinse it in cool water, No old school methods of using butter.
Yuck.
I know I hear that all the time. Like, oh, we shouldn't use butter. Please don't. Yeah. So yeah, you would run it under some cool water, pat it dry, apply that triple antibiotic cream on there very, loosely. I would use a 4x4, but I would use the ones that kind of have that what is that on there? It's escaping me right now. It kind of has a clear
Feels like,
coating
feels
on
like
it.
plastic almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
okay.
would use that type of 4x4 and then again wrap it with some Curlex, loosely, not really tight. But that's what I would do. And using that type of 4x4 keeps it from sticking to the burn, until that person's able to, get further assistance. So yeah, no butter,
No butter.
no butter.
So what kind of things need to be in an organization's safety plan here?
Well, that's up to the organization. The reason why I asked that question, because I always want to know if first aid and CPR is a part of their safety plan. And usually the answer is no. So, it just depends on the organization. I know, like I mentioned before, some of them have, tornado plans, fire plans, things like that. I am merely, advocating for having first aid and CPR as a part of that safety plan. I was speaking with a teller at First Financial because we are going to do first aid and CPR for them. And as I was speaking to her about it, she remembered a time when her grandmother actually had a cardiac arrest at her insurance agent's office waiting, to, see her insurance agent. And she said, you know what, I never thought about, us needing first aid and CPR because we're a bank, so you think, but members of the community, come into the bank all the time, and then she thought about her grandma and she said, my grandma was in the community, and, at a place of business when that happened. So it's one of those things, like, of course, you hope that you would not need to use it at your place of work, but it really could happen.
So I have a question. What if someone falls and hits their head? Is there a protocol for that?
Yeah, so I would assess that person. I would keep talking to that person. I would ask them, if their head hurts. I would look and see if there's, a bump or a bruise. I would, if while you're speaking to that person, if they seem to be, a little out of it, not able to answer questions appropriately, I would leave them wherever they are on the floor or wherever they landed and just keep them comfortable until EMS gets there. And again, keep them stimulated, continue to talk to them. If they don't seem to, show any of those signs, I would, slowly help them up, and I would still call 911 because you just kind of never know, what has gone on up there, as far as the head's concerned.
I think our first reaction would always be to help somebody up. So, it's like you're saying
Yeah.
kind of do an assessment first.
Yes, you should
Yeah.
always do an assessment first and, talk to them. That's the best way to know if something's going on, up there or not. And then, of course, visibly, see if there's any bruising or large bumps or a big cut. You never know. Yeah.
And is there anyone at a company or organization who maybe should be in charge of this process?
Um, again, it depends on the organization. If it were me, I would designate, one or two people, to be trained in this area. Um, and again, I know there's some places where, there's some shifts, right? And so, again, if it were me, I would try to have at least one or two people per shift, or, a couple people, in a department, um, be trained in this area. Because I think it's unrealistic to think that we could, especially in larger companies, train everybody. But yeah, one or two people per shift or department. I don't know. But if you use an organization like mine who come in and, do the training, we'll do it. We keep track of your certification. Your certification is good for 2 years. Usually 90 days out, we will email whoever the designated person is in that organization and remind them that it's time for recertification. And then we'll come back out and do the recertification. And the recertification usually only takes about an hour, just, depending on the group.
So then for the initial training, how does that work? Like, how long does that take? Do you have like a minimum number of employees or a maximum per training?
Understood. So yeah, if we're coming to your organization, we need to have 3 or more individuals to train. And it usually takes a couple of hours. Again, it kind of depends on the group. When we get upwards to between 6 and 8, sometimes it can go over a little bit, but just, depending on how many questions somebody asks and things like that. But that 2-hour 15-minute mark is usually how long it takes us to do an initial certification for a group.
So I have a question. If someone's choking, which, can happen pretty commonly, 2 questions. What should you do? And second of all, that thing that they advertise on TV for kids, does that actually work? That looks like a big plunger. Have you seen
I'm
that?
not aware of that.
Yeah, you
I'm
put it
gonna
over
write
the
that
face.
down.
You put it over the face and pull hard, and whatever is lodged in their throat, it pulls it out.
I'm writing that down. I have not heard of that, and I have not seen that in our inventory. We certify through the American Red Cross, and I haven't seen that, so it's probably not Red Cross approved. But yes, if someone is visibly choking, you would do the Heimlich, which we will teach you, how to do in the standard, first aid and CPR training. That is a part of that. But it really does work if you know how to do it correctly. I taught my daughter when she was 7, and she actually saved my son's life. He was 3. Her doing the Heimlich, he had stuffed his mouth with hot dogs. You know how you cut them in half? Moms will know, how you cut hot dogs in half for, the kids. And he had stuffed his mouth with all of them, and I had walked out of the kitchen briefly, do some laundry, and I come back and I see my daughter doing the Heimlich, and then hot dogs just shooting out of his mouth. So yeah, I was grateful that I taught her that at such, a young age. But that simple thing and knowing how to do it correctly really does save people.
So what if you're alone? Can you do it to yourself?
Yes, and we will teach you that as well, how to do that using a chair.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That happened to me not too long ago, and I was home by myself, and it was a few seconds of being very frightened.
Yes, it can be. Yeah, it really can be.
All right. So any other questions for Lamonda? Nope. All right. Lamonda, thank you so much for being with us. We are super excited to have you here. I think this is some really great information. If anyone has any questions after this, please go ahead and contact Lamonda. She can connect you, get training set up, or answer any questions you've got. Do you want to go ahead and give your contact information one more time real quick?
Absolutely. So it's Lamonda, LAMONDA at lcdhha.com. And our office number is 513-887-6100.
Perfect. Glad to have you with us today. We'll be
Thank
back in a
you.
couple weeks for
Yes.
Coffee and Conversation. Our next one is scheduled for Tuesday, April 9th, back here on Zoom, 9 to 10 a.m. So go ahead and please register for that and check out if you ever need to access any of the past Coffee and Conversations. They are on the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce's Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel. So you can resource those at any time. Any of the past presenters are more than happy to answer any questions you ever have about their topic. So we will see you all in a couple of weeks then.
Thank you,
Great
Lamonda.
info. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great
Thank you, guys.
information that we all need, and probably none of us are up to date as we should be.
Understood. Well, happy to help. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.